Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Good morning, dear friends. In this week, we would be looking at the conceptualization of gender and its intersections with race. In the first two modules of this week, we would look at the basic tenets of Black feminism and also its differences with womanism, and also try to conceptualize how these differences gradually lead us towards a formulation of intertextuality. Black feminism wanted to develop a theoretical stance which would be able to address the interdependence of different ideological structures and how they all together push them towards a system of exploitation. In the first module, we would look at the stereotypes in culture and media regarding Black women and also would gradually take up certain key concepts of Black feminism. As we know, Black women have been isolated from the mainstream feminism because of their race, and simultaneously they have been excluded from the systems of power within the liberation movement because of their gender. So, they have been exploited by race as well as by their own gender. Black feminism tries to center the experiences of Black women, understanding their position in relation to these issues of racism, sexism and classism, as well as their socio-political identities, also foraging into the reasons of their economic exploitation. It highlights and engages with many aspects of women's identity, giving them an opportunity to talk about being Black along with their gender inequalities. We can say that Black feminism tries to systematically oppose those hegemonic systems of dominance which have been developed in the context of social injustice and have been throughout sustained by social thought and sociological structures. In this regard, we should also be careful to understand what has been termed as an outsider within status by Patricia Hill Collins. Patricia Hill Collins suggests that Black women often possessed what can be understood as an outsider within status, which provides a particular perspective to them. This particular perspective provides Black women a creative use of marginality, and Black feminist thought often consists of ideas which have been contributed by such Black women. Black women as slaves had been privy to some of the most intimate aspects of white society. These intimacies were denied to their spouses who also happened to be Black while performing their domestic duties, nurturing their other family and taking care of the white children. They also developed some close perspectives which sometimes were even denied to their masters. Memoirs of several white children belonging to affluent classes often remember fondly their Black mothers, women who had selflessly taken care of them. At the same time, we come across certain memoirs by Black women who also felt some sense of self-affirmation during this role. However, Black women also knew all the time with certainty that they could never belong to this family and they were initially outsiders. Black feminism, as Patricia Hill Collins has suggested, has been enriched by such experiences. The vast majority of African American women were brought to the United States to work as slaves in a situation of oppression. As early as 1850s, Maria Stewart had started to talk about the double isolation of women. In her lectures, Maria Stewart took up public and political issues, also challenged African American women to reject the negative image of black womanhood as a fundamental cause of their own poverty. In one of the speeches, which has become very famous, she draws biblical parallels also. She says that as King Solomon had neither put any nail or hammer to the temple, yet received all the praise, in the same manner it was the African women who were the foundation of the richness of the white, but they never received any credit for it. In a quintessential book titled Black Feminist Thought, Knowledge, Consciousness and the Politics of Empowerment, which was published in 2009, Patricia Hill Collins has explored different black feminist intellectuals and writers both within academia and also from the outside. She has drawn from fiction, from music, poetry, as well as oral history in order to develop an interpretive framework. She suggests that the oppression of African American women has encompassed three interdependent dimensions. The three dimensions which also happen to be interdependent. The first dimension constitutes the exploitation of black women's labor, which has been essential to the development of US capitalism. She terms it as the iron pots and kettles, which symbolize their long-standing ghettoization in service occupations. It represents the economic dimension of their oppression. If we look at the situation of African American women, we still find that many of them are still working in low paid sections, which is also considered as a fallout of these slavery days. The second dimension of black women's oppression is related with their political isolation. Patricia Collins terms it as a political dimension of oppression, as women have been denied rights and privileges routinely which had been extended to white male citizens. So, forbidding black women to participate in political processes, not allowing them entry to the public office, withholding equitable treatment in the criminal justice system, etc., have further cemented the political subordination of black women. The third and the final interdependent dimension deals with what has been termed by Patricia Collins as controlling images, which have been culturally applied to black women. These images mainly originated during the slave era, but they attest to the ideological dimension of their oppression. These images are attempts to check black women. They are in fact considered as distorted renderings of those aspects of behavior amongst the black women which were seen as being threatening towards the concept of white patriarchy. For example, the use of certain words which is very popular in different cultural frameworks. When the word matriarch is used in the context of African American women, we find that it is an attempt to ridicule the strong mother figure who is trying to socialize posterity of their own race. But then the strong woman is also considered to be against the patriarchal notions of family power relations. Similarly, when the word sapphire is used in a debilitating context for the black women, we find that it is used to ridicule assertiveness of black women. They are suggested as being aggressive, rude and malicious as they threaten patriarchal understanding of how femininity has to be enacted. An understanding of these controlling images reveals how oppressions of gender, race, sexuality and class intersect. Realizing and employing these images portraying African American women as stereotypical mammies or matriarchs, welfare recipients, hot mamas, etc., in a way helps justify their own oppression. The dominant ideology of the slave era fostered the creation of these controlling images of black womanhood. Furthermore, since these images are changing and dynamic, we find that some new images have been added to those which had been received from the slave era, but still the cultural connotations bank on certain stereotypical understanding of black women. So, since these images are changing and dynamic, each provides a starting point for scrutinizing new forms of control that emerge in a transnational context, one where selling images has increased in importance in the global marketplace. The first image, which is often used in popular culture as well as in literature and media, is the image of a mammy. She is the obedient, faithful domestic servant created to condone the economic exploitation of house slaves and sustained to explain black women's long standing restriction to domestic service. The image of the mammy is reminiscent of the Western concept of an African woman, usually big, fat, and cantankerous, and this image represents the normative yardstick which is used to evaluate black women's behavior. By nurturing, loving, and caring for her white children and family better than her own, the mammy portrays the dominant group's perception of the perfect female relationship towards elite white male power. The controlling image of a mammy is sometimes termed as positive to a certain extent, as it has mainly focused on the nurturing aspect of a black woman's personality. As we have discussed earlier, several memoirs of whites in US as well as in Britain fondly remember their black mothers. Similarly, there are accounts of some erstwhile slaves and mammies who talk about a particular sense of self-affirmation while they were taking care of a white family. This feeling has been termed as outsider within status by Patricia Hill Collins. As these women have understood the demystification which comes with close familiarity, they are still able to contribute rich perspectives towards our understanding of black feminism. Oppositional binaries never represent equal relationships as they are inherently unstable. Black women have occupied a position whereby the inferior half of these binaries converge, making them non-agentic and also subordinate. Also, those black women who somehow internalized this image of a mammy potentially became operative agents, rather conduits for preserving racial oppression, as they often transmitted a differential attitude amongst their own children also. They were forced to adopt a particular differential attitude. It was perhaps necessary for them to survive in a white power structure, but at the same time they also passed on this attitude of servility to their children. We will share a clip from a movie, Gone with the Wind, which is a very famous 1939 movie. It is based on a novel by Margaret Mitchell, which was published in 1936. In this clip, we look at the protagonist Scarlett, and the presence of the mammy is also displayed here. Interestingly, in this novel, though mammy becomes an important character, the readers never come to know anything about her background. It was in 2007 that, with the permission of the Mitchell family, a writer, Donald McCaig, has published another novel which is titled as Ruth's Journey. Ruth's Journey is a prequel to the novel. It presents a nuanced and poignant portrayal of the mammy, also giving her a name as well as a background.
Ooh! Just hold on and suck in.
Mammy, here's Miss Scarlett's victuals.
You can take that all back to the kitchen. I won't need to buy it.
Oh, yes, you is. You's going to eat every mouthful of this. Oh,
I'm not. We'll put on the dress, because we're late already.
What my lamb going to wear?
That?
No, you ain't. You can't show your bosom for 3 o'clock. I'm going to speak to your ma about you.
If you say one word to Mother, I won't eat a bite.
Well. Keep the shawl on your shoulder. I ain't even for you to get all freckled after the buttermilk I done put on you all this winter, reaching in my freckles. Oh, now, Miss Scarlett, you come on and be good and eat just a little, honey.
No. I'm going to have a good time today and do my eating at the barbecue.
If you don't care what folks says about this family, I does. I has told you that you can always tell a lady but the way that she eat in front of folks like a bird. And I ain't aiming for you to go to Mr. John Wilkins's and eat like a field hand and gobble like a hog.
Fiddle-dee-dee. Ashton Wilkes told me he likes to see a girl with a healthy appetite.
What gentleman says and what they thinks is 2 different things. And I ain't noticed Mr. Ashley asking for to marry you.
Another controlling image is that of a black matriarch. Although it is a rather recent phenomena, it fulfills similar functions in explaining black women's placement in intersecting operations. Matriarch is a symbol of a mother figure in black homes instead of the figure of a mother in white homes. The image of the matriarch is based on the white's concept of a bad black mother. It also ties gender ideology to explanations for extreme distribution of wealth that characterize the American capitalist society. And this image is also used to explain how and why blacks are at an economically disadvantaged situation. The image of the black matriarch portrays an overly strong black woman. Some critics have pointed out that it has also influenced the way a black man understands and assimilates his own understanding of masculinity. Some surveys have come out which tell us that some black men reject black women as marital partners as they feel that in comparison to white women, they are perhaps too assertive. The image of the black matriarch is also used in contemporary times to project through media a caricature of the black women, sometimes in order to enhance the celebrity, sometimes under the impression that such cultural stereotypes are more acceptable to the society in general. Media's Big Happy Family, which is an American comedy film released in 2011, also banks on similar stereotypical images. This movie is based on Tyler Perry's play.
Now, I don't know where the hell Cora is at. I done told her I need to go to the store. And people had already told me I can't be driving, and she know that I need to go to the store.
That child gonna leave you to starve to death. I told you when you little, and the way you were treating her, she gonna leave you to starve to death one day. And now it's that
Shut
time.
up, bastard.
Hello?
Cora.
Yeah, hello, my dear, yes.
Cora.
Yes, ma'am.
Where the hell you at?
I'm still at the hair salon.
What the hell you doing at the hairdresser? You've been there 5 hours. Your hair ain't but 1.5 inches long. What the hell they doing to you?
I'm coming. I'm just trying to... Can I have some me time, please? Hello? Hello?
You need some what?
Some me time.
Some what?
Some me time. Some time for myself.
Cora,
Yes, ma'am.
did I ever ask you for some me time, Cora?
No, ma'am.
Did I ask you for some me time when I had to get up every 4 hours and cook for you up until your time you were 17 years old?
No, ma'am. You
Did I ask you for some me time when I had to hit that stripper pole every night trying to bring some money into this house? Did I ask you for some me time then?
No, ma'am, no.
All them old men up there trying to make it drizzle because they showing the hell couldn't make it rain? What the hell is me time?
I'm just taking care of myself. That's what I'm doing. Getting some me time.
Time for nothing. I'm going to the store here. I don't need you to bring. I'm a grown ass woman. I'm gonna go to the store myself.
Well, you can't go to the store. You're not supposed to be driving. I'll be there soon, okay?
Who the hell you think you talking to telling me I can't drive? If I feel like driving, I'm driving.
You can't
We have looked at two controlling images which are closer to the slave era. The image of the welfare mother is relatively recent, but this is also an externally defined and controlling image of black womanhood. The welfare mother's image is linked to working class black women's increasing access to the US welfare state entitlements. This constitutes a class specific image which is established for those poor working class black women who started to have access to those social welfare benefits which were started after the Second World War and to which they were legally entitled. The need of such stereotypical class-based images was not felt till black women were denied social welfare benefits. But when they gained better political power and some access to state services, the need of establishing a controlling image in contemporary culture was felt. As a matriarch, the welfare mother is also labeled as bad mother. A mother who is lazy, who is content to collect welfare, shunning work and also passing on her corrupt values to her own children. Collins suggests that this image is an updated version of the breeder woman image which was created during slavery, as it also provides an ideological justification for efforts to harness the fertility of a black woman to the needs of a changing political economy. The image of the breeder woman was a necessity of the slave era, where every child was an economic asset also. However, in more recent times, we find that the number of participants under a welfare scheme grows, and interestingly, it is the black women who have to share the blame for it. They are typically portrayed through this image as unwed mothers, a person who violates a cardinal tenet of Eurocentric masculinist thought. She is a woman alone, and as a result, her treatment reinforces the dominant gender ideology, positing that a woman's true worth as well as financial security should take place only through heterosexual marriages. So, this controlling image of the welfare mother stigmatizes her. It also links her with her own poverty as being its sole agent, and therefore it shifts the focus away from other structural sources of poverty and instead blames the victim herself. The image of the welfare mother thus provides ideological justification for the dominant group's interest in limiting the fertility of black mothers who are seen as producing too many economically unproductive children. And it is this aspect which links this image with the image of the breeder woman which was produced during the slavery. Here towards the bottom of this slide, a video link is also given. This video would be played towards the end of this discussion. Those of you who are interested in finding out more details about this stereotyped image can look at this video. The image of the welfare mother also leads us towards the concept of the welfare queen. As the politics of welfare started to become more radicalized and also sexualized, we find that this stereotypical image has become very common. Media images increasingly identified and blamed black women for the deterioration of US interests to mask the effects of cuts in government spending on social welfare programs. And these welfare programs housed working families, fed children, supported basic public services, etc. This trend had started, as several critics have pointed out, during the Reagan administration in 1980s, and it was used to demonize those African American women who were on welfare. The controlling image of the welfare queen is also accompanied by another similar image, that of a black lady. The controlling image of the black lady is also a class specific image. It portrays a woman who has preferred to stay in school, worked hard, achieved much in terms of her profession. So, an educated black woman who has given up family life to pursue her career is identified as a black lady. So we find that professional black women serve as a modern version of the politics of respectability advanced by the club women. This image initially comes across as a benign one and not a controlling one. However, this image is also based on prejudice and negative stereotypes of black women. Like other stereotypes, it is also linked with the sexuality of black women. It is a controlling image as it provides a social script about how people can view and treat a black woman. And simultaneously, this cultural image also encourages a woman to internalize this script. Hence, when looked together, the welfare queen and the black lady constitute class-specific versions of a matriarchy thesis, whose fundamental goal is to discredit black women's full exercise of citizenship rights as well as of agency governing one's own decisions. The image of the black lady is also used as an excuse for reverse racism. Sometimes people feel that she has impinged on the rights of a white man because of being successful in a career. These controlling images sensitize us to this idea that there is certain diversity within commonality. Within the common experiences of African American women, we find that a significant diversity exists. And these stereotypes address different aspects of positivity as there is no single homogeneous perspective of black womanhood. But still we find that it is the concept of sexuality which is central to all these images about black women. Because of the centrality of sexuality, we find that the controlling image of the Jezebel, Hoochie or a whore has become the nexus of such images. Efforts to control the sexuality of black women are positioned at the heart of black women's oppression. Historical Jezebels and contemporary Hoochies portray a deviant sexuality of the black women. The image of the Jezebel originated under slavery when black women were often depicted as being sexually aggressive wet nurses. The sexual aggression was enforced on them. It was an image which was associated with them because of their own circumstances. They were trapped in the families of whites during slavery as milk cows or nannies. This treatment of a black woman as a milk cow is very effectively portrayed by Toni Morrison in her novel A Mercy. It is also a distinct aspect of enslaved black women's commodification. It also justified the inherent economic exploitation of slavery and became a basis of widespread sexual assaults by white men, typically reported by black slave women. The Hoochie is referred to in the same context by black men also. In the context of gender specific and heterosexual white normality, the Jezebel or Hoochie is transformed into a racialized gendered symbol of deviant female sexuality. Deviant female heterosexuality is also typified by the idea of hot mamas, which is also related with black womanhood conventionally, as opposed to normal female heterosexuality, which is expressed through the cult of true white womanhood. Since the Jezebel or a Hoochie is constructed as a woman whose sexual appetite is at best appropriate and at worst insatiable, it quickly becomes an easy step to imagine her as a freak. Further, if she is a freak, her sexual partners also become stigmatized. So these prevalent images of black womanhood embody elite white male interest in defining black women's sexuality and fertility. We find that such stereotyped images have also impacted black women's self-identification. Their own concept of what has to be termed as beauty is impacted by racial segregation, commodification and subordination. Ben Cosme had suggested that Eurocentric beauty standard plays a huge role in their perception of self-identity and their perceptions about their own beauty. The social perceptions of adopting a more Eurocentric look begins at a very early age through socialization, through social organizations such as school and church, etc. So, black women sometimes try to have their hair straightened, relaxed, or chemically altered because they want to conform to a more presentable social standard. However, good hair or skin tone or any other body shape which is preferable is always culturally quoted. The controlling images of black women are not grafted over existing social institutions, but they are so pervasive that even though the images themselves change in the popular imagination, black women's portrayal as the other continues. Within the binary thinking that underpins intersecting operations, blue-eyed, blonde, thin white man is considered to be the epitome of beauty, but her imagination is not possible without the other, a black woman with African features of dark skin, broad nose, full lips and kinky hair, for example. So, African American women experience the pain of never being able up to prevailing standards of beauty which are used by their society, by white men, white women, black men, and also painfully one another. So, beauty is subject to the hegemonic standards of the ruling class, and because of this, beauty becomes an elusive commodity, and definitions of beauty vary among culture and historical periods also. We have looked at several controlling images which have survived the days of slavery, and also some of these images have been added to the cultural context by more contemporary social developments. We should also take into consideration the positive legacy of the black women. Social institutions were controlled by white males, and it led African American women to resort to certain ways which could be termed as safe spaces. The idea of safe spaces is having those social spaces where they could speak freely, where they could have opportunities for self-definitions and were able to resist objectification. So, these primary safe spaces which have been listed by Patricia Collins are black women's relationships with one another, mentoring, as well as cultural codes of music and poetry. The blues as a music form are particularly important for constructing safe spaces and identities for black women. It had originated out of the back and forth call of slaves who had to work in the fields, trying to give a voice to the voiceless. It was born out of misery, but at the same time, it also gave birth to certain hope. This hope was not exactly expressed in words, but it was more powerfully felt in the rhythm and also the collectivity of this rhythm, which made their work less arduous. Later on, of course, it became an outlet in the race markets, if we can use this phrase. Blues were quintessential to the legitimization of music as a part of their own identity. It was never a sole form of entertainment. It was a way of solidifying community and later commenting on the social fabric of working class black life in America. The spirituals as well as the work songs confirm that the individual concerns of black people were expressed through music, and they also centered on a collective desire for the end of this system. The presence of the sexual meanings in the blues is always felt. However, the slave music, whether it is religious or secular, was also quintessentially collective. It was performed collectively, and it also gave expression to the community's yearning for freedom. So, the spirituals, jazz, blues, R&B, and progressive hip hop all form a part of a continuum of struggle which is at once aesthetic and political. Therefore, blues has occupied an important place in black women's music. The song can be regarded as poetry, as expressions of their true identity, which is restated through their oral traditions. The lyrics defy the externally defined controlling images which have been used to justify their objectification. The original African American women who were the blues singers sang their songs, which were often laced with sexually explicit themes, in a complicated context of class, race, and gender politics. Their work also advocated the importance of self-reliance and agency for their own people. A term which is significant in the context of understanding how black feminism gradually moves towards intersectionality is hip hop feminism. The term was coined by Jo Morgan in her book When Chicken Hearts Come Home to Roost, a hip hop feminist breaks it down. The book was published in 1999. So feminists like Morgan and Brent Zooks argued that black American women needed a new feminist movement, as they felt that the second wave black feminism has failed to address the contemporary realities and the needs of young black women. Thus, they wanted a dialogic relationship between hip hop, a subculture which had started during the 1970s, and feminism. It can be best understood as a means of reconciliation on the part of a young black woman in the US trying to create a space for herself between the whiteness and the academically sanitized version of university based feminism. So it identified those women who supported the feminist issues but also enjoy misogynistic hip hop with certain elements of patriarchy. So ever since the inception, hip hop has represented resistance to social marginalization, and later on certain idea of resistance to and a commentary on the economic and political oppression that makes social marginalization possible. Hip hop feminism gave an opportunity to the young black women to establish their own gender critique and feminist identity, which wanted to oppose the binary oppression. They have expressed certain major points of criticism of the second wave black feminism, which are important for us to understand. According to them, the second wave feminists were preoccupied with hip hop's misogyny at the expense of exploring its potential. They also had a rather narrow and static conception of feministic identities which emerged out of their own theorizing and activism. They also thought that the outmoded and subsequently ineffectual strategies for outreach to and empowerment of young black women and girls employed by second wave black feminists. Despite this critique, hip hop feminists have not abandoned historical manifestations of black American feminism. Rather, they build extensively on the work of the second and first wave black feminists to concretize their own understanding of the social phenomena. They also take up themes such as empowerment of women, importance of images and representation. So the dialogic relationship between hip hop and feminism can be seen as a critical framework to analyze black womanhood and as an appeal to contemporary girls and women whose lives are intertwined with hip hop and its culture as a way to discuss their feminism. So in this module, we have discussed certain trends which have emerged in the context of black feminism. We would continue it further in our next module. In the next slide, there is a video link which has been given. Those of you who want to understand the concept of the welfare queen and how this stereotype has come to exist can look at it. Thank you.